So how did this latest chapter of the Blues Brothers come together? When did you guys first start talking?
No, sorry. We're gonna get a hot mic. This started like 7 years ago. My mother, Judy Belushi, who was very much a steward of the Blues Brothers and instilled a lot of love for these characters and this story in me, wanted to bring the characters back in an authentic, organic way, and we approached Z2, and it just felt like the right kind of fit, and just getting to spend time with Jake and Elwood as comic book characters just seems so, they're so elastic, so it just felt like such an organic opportunity, and that's kind of where it started, and we talked to Stella and hoped she would join, and she did, and she brought James in, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that was, I was working as a writer's assistant and sort of focusing on TV and film, and Luke called me, and I immediately was very interested. I am definitely intimidated by these characters in this movie, but there was something about them being comic book characters and having a comic book that just felt like we needed to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just blessed that these guys let me stick on board with them. Me and Stella used to perform and write together in high school for a conservatory theater, and she brought me in because we love working together, and I happen to be a comic book nerd of sorts, although I wouldn't try to go toe to toe with some of the real deal out there. But I think I have some stake in it, and it's just been a pleasure, man. It's been a blessing. So and same thing when they brought this to me, it made so much sense, knowing the film, that these characters would be able to live on in these comic books, and we'd be able to destroy many more police cars.
Can you tell us about this orphan character and the orphan character that's going to be featured in this movie?
Yeah, we are one of the new adventurers is a young man who grew up in an orphanage, and grew up around Jake and Elwood and seeing them pass by and do their mischief. And he is now in the 90s, where our story takes place, a grown man and a blues musician, and working hard and working the city and trying to make it out. And this story is also about the music industry and maybe bad contracts and shifty producers and how it can damage the musician, and the heart of the heart of the musician. And Wolfie, that character, never loses that, and then he meets up with the Blues Brothers at some point.
Yeah. I think important to mention with Wolfie is that he was sort of brought up by Curtis, who's Cap Calloway's character, who we know imparted what Jake and Elwood know about the blues onto them. So he feels a strong connection to those folks, and he's always had an eye out for the briefcase full of blues, which we go into the history of in this story in a lot of flashbacks, where we see Jake and Elwood as young men. Now in the 90s, they're in their 40s, so, but we flash back and forth.
Yeah. Wolfie was one of my, probably maybe my favorite character from the new story, and I think it's a character that I really think people will be able to latch onto, because he's kind of the most human character that we wrote, and his last name is James, which was inspired by the man sitting to my right.
And he's a fan of the Blues Brothers, just like most of the readers. Yeah, he loves them.
Right. Yeah.
What kind of editorial oversight did your father have?
He had, I said, as much as you have interest in, we will bleed you dry. And he, he's in his 70s now, and he was in the Virgin Islands at one point, and I was faxing him these scripts, and he was getting them and giving us notes. But he, at instrumental and a total editor, he, was very encouraging of us, and also gave us structured notes and cool insight into things that he had thought would happen to these characters or where they would go or what happened. But yeah, he was a part of Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 to completion, yeah.
I mean, my father watches the Blues Brothers movie like a million times, pretty much a week. And I'm curious how you guys feel about bringing this franchise to people who've never seen it before, that maybe didn't grow up with it, and what you feel it takes to bring it to that new generation.
Yeah, I think, I've said this before, but the first movie just did so many things right and was sort of this like it's shot into the world because of all of these things that were working. It's a musical comedy, it's an action movie, it has like real grit in it, and it's also was an introduction for a lot of people to these blues artists or the blues genre in general. And so we definitely in our book prioritized, having it be for all ages so that it is something that you can get excited about and give your kids and get them to be interested in too.
I think what the legacy of John and Dan, not even as Jake and Elwood, was, I think, continuing the legacy of the blues in the '80s and the blues at a time that had maybe become out of the main spotlight like it was in the '50s, '60s. You think about Aretha Franklin, James Brown, Ray Charles, these artists that were obviously huge but had maybe kind of fallen out of the limelight a little bit, and then through this film were really thrust back into the limelight. So the mission from God, of course, being to bring back this American tradition. And I think that's kind of what I think at the heart of what we were doing is roughly about is trying to bring back not only Jake and Elwood now, but also again with blues music and the such an important American art form, a black art form, and give space to those voices and just honor just kind of the legacy of John and Dan and the work that they put into this, and my mother Judy, and continuing the legacy from there. So I think hopefully this book will introduce a new audience in the same way that John and Dan were maybe able to introduce a new audience to the blues music all those years ago.
Yeah, I think it's similar to the 80s. I think the world right now could use blues music, soul music. I believe that music is one of the great connectors in the universe, and I think that just reminding people of that music and just to sing and dance is really important right now. My grandma Shirley Jones, she sung me the blues when I was a kid, and she came over from New Orleans during the Great Migration, so she instilled a lot of that in me, and just reminding people of some of these incredible voices that have existed in music over time, and hopefully bringing some of that soul and spirit back to the world. I mean, it's the mission for Jake and Elwood, but it's also just the mission for us and fans of the Blues Brothers. I think they would say the same.
Yeah, I hope in the same vein as, when people finish watching that movie, The Blues Brothers, they hopefully probably thought, I'm going to go to a blues show or I'm going to find a blues bar. And I think in the world that we're living in now, it would be a major win for people to close this book and say, I'm going to look up some old performances on YouTube, and watch John Lee Hooker do his thing on stage, watch B.B. King, and then, of course, go out to a blues bar and see that this is still around and still so rich.
Yeah.
Do you guys have additional plans for stuff like video games? I mean, there were ones back in the day, and how do you feel about that? Further merchandise, so to speak.
I would say this is a great question. I think our goal was to make something worth reading and something that was rich in the world and expand on the world. We really leaned on James to help us expand the world of the Blues Brothers, make this something people want to, like as Stella says, hang out with these guys again, right? And I think where it goes from here is based on the reader, on the fans. How, if they, hopefully they'll buy this, they'll love it as much as we loved writing it, and they'll want more. And from that point, maybe something will come down the road. But right now, we're really focused on just trying to get this book into people's hands, and hopefully they'll latch on to the complexity and the richness of this story. And yes, of course, ideally more to come. But for now. Please go buy this book and tell us what you think.
How did you? Go ahead.
All I was gonna say, when you say video games, I could totally see like a GTA style Blues Brothers. So maybe there's like a mod to come. But I just have to say, anything that gets us more drawings from Felipe Sobrero, anything that gets us more images from him, even if it's just like prints. That he's the artist on the comic book, and he did a fantastic job. That's all I'll say. Yeah.
How did you connect with Felipe?
We connected with Z2, brought us an array of really talented artists, and we landed on Felipe. He's just perfect, man. I mean, he has his own definitive style that's brilliant and was sort of perfect for what we wanted. We wanted this comic to be stylized, but we also wanted it to be digestible by, like our great story editor Rance mentions, every comic is someone's first comic. So he had a style that we thought people would be able to look at that still felt really cool. But he's also versatile and is able to, he's really well educated in a bunch of different styles, which we needed because there's a lot of flashbacks in the book. So we have different styles for those than the contemporary moments.
Just so amazing for someone of his level of talent. He was just so willing to collaborate with us three. None of us have written a comic book before, and so I think we would send him, if you can imagine a script format, the comic book format is, you have, the first line, 2 panels. In these 2 panels, we had a million things going on. And Felipe would write back and say, so I think what you actually needed was this. Yeah, and then we go, yes. So he's not only an amazing illustrator and made this book what it is, but just a great collaborator.
Yeah. In his second language, by the way, which is so impressive. Just he's a Brazilian artist, lives in Brazil, obviously speaking Portuguese, and to be able to do that in English is just so. I mean, that really blew me away, and his talent. He's just so talented.
Did you have like a formal approval process where they gave you concept art and you basically chose the artists yourselves, or?
Well, we worked with Z2 Comics. They are an amazing collaborative, like perfect for this project. And we had shopped a couple that we had hoped to do, and they were like, "Hey, check out this guy, Felipe." They really found him and brought him in, and we just saw the work, and we were like, this will be great." And Danny, you want to speak to how much Danny just loved the initial drawings?
Yeah, my dad was very encouraging of this, but definitely was kind of like, well, you go do it and you let me know how it goes. And one of the points was me coming back to him and saying, what do you think of these illustrations? Here are the character designs. And he got really excited and then wanted to be more a part of it, which is cool.
Is the Ray-Ban sponsorship in the works here?
Of course, yeah, Meta.
Yeah. Hello.
I need a pair.
Ray-Ban. I think they're Italian. Does anybody speak Italian here?
Oh, yeah.
Grazie,
Quanto
ciao.
costa? Yeah. I think that means how much.
Familia.
Please, Ray-Ban, hit us up.
Yeah. Listen, Meta, video game, driving, VR.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sitting
you
next
heard
to
it here
Brothers.
first.
Sitting next to Elwood.
Something like that.
If you have one message you'd like to tell Blues Brothers fans from new and old, what would you like to say?
I would say welcome back to the party. It's happening again. And I guess the other thing I would like to say is, I think the three of us, we're really a team, but what we each brought to the table was, I know my dad so well, and I put as much as I could of him in here, of things that the world doesn't know, things that the world does know, and there's a ton of Easter eggs in here that we all worked really hard for. Luke's, Judy was John's best friend and partner and everything. And I think truly she knew him better than anybody. And so we just really infused this book with everything that we know about the Blues Brothers and also everything that we know about John and Dan, and what they wanted for these characters. And yeah.
Yeah, if I could say one thing to Blues Brothers fans, this is real. Like, this was thought out. This took us years to really get this thing right, and we tried as hard as we could to figure out what made the Blues Brothers work and really bring that into this, cutting the fat, trying to make it funny. The mission from God to continue the music, continue the legacy of these great artists. Just the pulling from the tapestry of, from the comedy, from the brilliance of Dan and John, to just like the little minutia things of, a building exploding, and they kind of just brush off their shoulders and get up and seem to always, just sneak out of a barrage of cops in the last second. And it really is a love letter to the fans and a love letter to, because we're just fans of the Blues Brothers. And so I think my one thing that I'd say to you is that we hope that we made something that you're as proud of to read it as we are to put it out there.
I will keep it brief. I will say that there's a vinyl that's coming out with this book that is a completely unheard rehearsal of the Blues Brothers band with John and Dan. If you want to get that record and listen to that record while you read this book, I feel like that's going to be a pretty authentic way to experience it. Regardless, go listen to the blues. I mean, if you're a Blues Brothers fan, then you're probably doing that already. We did this for Dan, we did it for John, and we did it for the sort of third spiritual blues sibling, which is Luke's mom, Judy Belushi. And if you don't know who she is, go look her up, listen to her music, read her other books. She's a brilliant creative. So I'd say, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.